Noah Callahan, 38-year-old CEO of Callahan Dynamics, stood alone beside the dance floor of the Delacroix Hotel. In his hand was a shimmering glass of champagne, but his eyes were as empty as his soul. The chandeliers, the orchestral music, and the guests draped in haute couture couldn't fill the void that had stretched endlessly over the past 3 years since the day his late wife Lily was gone forever. For 40 years, the Callahan Foundation's annual spring gala had always opened with a waltz, a tradition started by Noah's father. But this year, Noah refused. Politely but firmly, he declined every invitation from Boston's most distinguished ladies. He turned down smiles, dismissed suggestive glances. He rejected a world that once used to be his. "You're throwing the whole rhythm of the evening off," whispered Mrs. Vivian Tremblay, his father's old friend and the chair of the foundation. "Your father never missed the opening dance." "Times have changed, Vivian," Noah replied softly, his eyes still fixed on the dance floor. "The foundation won't collapse just because I don't want to be tonight's spectacle." What Vivian and everyone in the room didn't know was that Noah had vowed never to dance again. Not with anyone but Lily. And so, tonight, the most powerful man in the ballroom became the quietest stranger at his own glittering affair. As the first notes of the Blue Danube began to swell through the hall, Noah started to step back from the spotlight, searching for the quietest exit that wouldn't draw attention. But a subtle commotion near the service entrance made him turn his head. A woman stepped in, flustered and clearly out of place in a simple black uniform with a white collar, the attire of the hotel's housekeeping staff. She was holding the arm of a girl around 16, her face a mix of shyness and wonder, her eyes shining like stars. The girl wore a pale blue dress, modest and plain, but in the sea of silk and sequins, she stood out like a wildflower blooming in a manicured rose garden. Noah recognized the woman Marisol Reyes, the housekeeper who tended his suite every time he stayed. He never knew her name, only that she moved quietly, worked diligently, and was always gone before he could say thank you. Marisol was whispering something to the event coordinator, who shook her head firmly and pointed toward the exit. The girl dropped her gaze, her shoulders folding inward with shame. Noah wasn't sure what made him move. He only knew that before he had time to think, he was already walking, stepping out of his comfort zone, heading straight toward the woman being dismissed, and toward a pair of sorrowful, hopeful eyes that had never been invited into this world. Noah Callahan, the coordinator, straightened immediately, forcing a tense, courteous smile. "Just a minor misunderstanding with support staff, nothing serious." Marisol lowered her head, her voice trembling with embarrassment. "I'm truly sorry, Mr. Callahan. My daughter's school prom was canceled last minute, a burst pipe in the gym. She was heartbroken. I thought maybe she could just peek in, see the beautiful dresses for a moment before I took her home." "It's okay, Mom. Let's just go," the girl said softly, tugging gently on her mother's sleeve. Her voice was calm, but Noah saw the disappointment written all over her face. He looked at them, a mother in a janitor's uniform and a daughter in a neatly pressed second-hand dress, both trying to shrink themselves to fit into a world not made for them. "What's your name?" Noah asked, his voice soft for the first time, directed at the girl. She blinked in surprise. "Sophia, sir. And that prom, you were really looking forward to it?" "Yes, sir. It would have been my first spring formal." Something in Noah's chest gave way, like the knot he'd carried for 3 years had loosened without warning. He thought of Lily, once a wide-eyed girl, excited for her high school prom, who had laughed through her first waltz as he taught her each step. The coordinator tried to interject, "Mr. Callahan, I explained guests not on the list." "They're my guests," Noah said firmly, loud enough for nearby onlookers to hear. Not only the coordinator was stunned. Marisol froze and Sophia's jaw dropped. "Mr. Callahan." "We couldn't possibly," Marisol stammered. "I insist," Noah said calmly, "and I believe tonight should be for those who truly need it." Sophia stood tentatively at the edge of the dance floor, as if afraid one step would get her thrown out of a dream. The gown swirled around her like waves, threatening to wash her away, her simple blue dress stark against the grandeur. Noah adjusted his lapel and walked toward her. He extended his hand formally, respectfully, as though inviting royalty to dance. "Sophia," he said gently, "would you honor me with the first waltz?" The entire room froze. I don't know how to dance," she stammered. "It's easier than it looks." He smiled. "I'll guide you through it." From the sidelines, Marisol gasped quietly. "Mr. Callahan, please, we don't want to cause a scene." "Call me Noah, please," he said with warmth but certainty. "And only if you're willing. This is something I want to do." After a moment's hesitation, Marisol gave a small nod. Blushing but smiling, Sophia slipped her small hand into his. As they stepped onto the dance floor, a hush fell over the room. Every gaze turned toward them. Whispered questions flared like sparks in a dry field. "Who is that girl? The maid's daughter. What is Noah doing?" But Noah didn't care. He placed her hand on his shoulder, held her other hand gently in his, and said softly, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. At first, Sophia stumbled, nearly stepping on his foot. But with each rotation, her steps found the rhythm. The tension melted from her frame, and a small, sincere smile bloomed on her lips. "I'm actually dancing," she whispered, as if afraid the dream might vanish if said aloud. "You're a natural." "Noah," replied his voice tender. From the sidelines, Marisol stood still. On her face, pride, gratitude, and something deeper. A kind of quiet grace no one at that gala had ever cared to notice. As the waltz concluded, Noah gently escorted Sophia back to her mother. He bowed politely like a classic gentleman. "Thank you for the wonderful dance." Sophia couldn't hide her joy. "I never thought a canceled prom could turn out this magical." Marisol, still visibly overwhelmed, murmured, "We don't want to take up more of your time. Thank you for your kindness. We'll leave now." But Noah shook his head, the corners of his lips lifting slightly. "Not at all. In fact, I'd love for you both to join me for dinner. The meal is about to be served, and I could use a real conversation instead of idle talk about stock markets and yachts." Marisol froze. "Mr. Callahan, I'm still on duty, and we're not exactly dressed for 'I'll speak with your supervisor,'" Noah interrupted gently. "And as for attire, who decides what elegance looks like?" The mother and daughter exchanged a glance, one filled with unspoken thoughts, uncertainty, quiet excitement, and the lingering fear of judgment. Then Marisol slowly nodded. Noah smiled, offering his arm to both of them, one for Sophia, one for her mother, and led them toward the head table under the stunned gaze of an entire ballroom. From across the room, the women who had hoped to catch the powerful CEO's attention now sat in silence, hiding their confusion behind strained smiles. And for the first time in 3 years, Noah Callahan felt he was exactly where he was meant to be, with people who touched his heart, not his reputation. Dinner was served, elegant plates placed one by one, but instead of the usual draining conversations about real estate hedge funds or summers in Saint-Tropez, Noah simply listened. "I'm a junior," Sophia said, shy but animated. I love physics. My teacher says if I do well on the SATs, I might get a scholarship in engineering. She spoke passionately about machines, bridge structures, torque principles. Every word like a pulse of life reviving something in Noah that he thought had long faded belief. Marisol sat quietly, her eyes glowing with quiet pride. At last, she said softly, Sophia won first place in the statewide science fair last month, but the national finals are in Chicago, and her voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. They couldn't afford to go. Noah put his glass down. The Callahan Foundation has an initiative supporting STEM education. Maybe it's time we expanded it into a national scholarship for talented students from disadvantaged backgrounds. At the head of the table, Thomas, the Foundation's executive director, choked slightly on his wine. As of now, we don't have such a program. Then we'll create one, Noah said calmly but firmly. I want a proposal on my desk by next week. For a moment, silence swept the table. Then eyes began shifting not to Sophia this time, but to Noah. And they weren't curious anymore, they were respectful. Marisol said nothing, but the tears shining in her eyes spoke louder than any thank you ever could. As dessert was served and the final melodies of the evening filled the air, couples began rising hand in hand for the gala's traditional closing waltz. Noah glanced at his untouched wine, then at Marisol, the woman who had existed in the corners of his world for years, like a shadow in hotel hallways unseen by all. Marisol, he said gently, may I have this dance? The space around them stilled once more. She looked up wide-eyed with disbelief. Mr. Callahan? I don't think I should, Noah, he corrected with a soft smile. Just one dance, to end a night worth remembering. There was a moment of pause. Then Marisol reached out her hand calloused from years of labor and placed it in his. The same hand that had changed sheets and scrubbed tiles now rested in the palm of a man who had signed billion-dollar deals. They stepped onto the floor. Unlike Sophia, Marisol wasn't clumsy. She moved with a quiet elegance, as though music had once been part of her life before circumstances told her it no longer belonged. Thank you, Noah whispered, for reminding me of things I'd forgotten. It's been so long since I danced, without feeling like I was betraying the past. Marisol replied, her voice barely above a breath. Thank you for giving my daughter a dream, and for giving me a night where I felt seen. Around them, the judgmental glances had shifted into something else, silent observation, some embarrassment, and perhaps a flicker of unexpected emotion. Noah no longer cared. All that mattered was the music, the hand on his shoulder, and the feeling for the first time in so long that he was truly living, not just appearing alive. 6 months after that unforgettable gala, a headline in the Boston Chronicle made many readers pause mid-sip. One dance changed everything. Callahan Foundation launches 2 national initiatives for education and small business. The first, a national STEM scholarship for gifted students from underserved communities. Its inaugural recipient, Sophia Reyes, the girl once turned away from a ballroom for not being worthy. The second, a grant program for small service sector entrepreneurs for those once invisible, like housekeepers, waitresses, and caregivers. The first beneficiary, Marisol Reyes, now founder of Reyes Professional Care, a premium cleaning service known for fair wages, full benefits, and respectful treatment of its workers. Within 3 months, her company was servicing contracts across the city's top hotel chains, and the following spring, when the Callahan Foundation hosted its gala once more, no one was surprised when Noah Callahan stepped onto the dance floor with a woman. Not an heiress, not an actress, But Marisol Reyes, no longer in uniform, but in a soft lilac gown, her hair down, her expression serene and self-assured. Those who once smirked now smiled politely. Some nodded, pretending they had always seen this coming. Noah didn't dance to prove a point. He danced because finally he had found where he belonged, not in boardrooms, not on headlines, but in the grateful eyes of a woman once invisible, and in the ever-growing dream of a girl once turned away at the door.